Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are doing something a bit different. We're shelving the usual business books, the standard self-help stuff.
Yeah.
And instead we're turning to this small, green-clad wanderer for advice on, well, how to live intentionally in 2025.
Right.
Yes, we are diving deep into the, honestly, surprisingly profound kind of radical philosophy of Snufkin from Tove Janssen's Moomin stories.
It sounds a little whimsical, maybe, but the source material we looked at, it treats Snufkin's lifestyle not as some cartoon fantasy, but as a genuine, actionable template for modern life. Seriously. His ideas about not owning things, about setting clear boundaries, it's exactly what, modern minimalists, digital nomads, maybe just anyone feeling overwhelmed, what they need right now.
So our mission today is to really extract that wisdom. We want to figure out how the core belief of this wandering philosopher, the idea that something complicated happens the moment you try to acquire something, how that can actually translate into practical steps for you today. This isn't really about suggesting you run off and live in a tent, right?
No, not at all. It's about gaining mental freedom. It's about setting boundaries that, actually stick.
Okay.
And we'll be weaving together how his life connects with, well, all sorts of things. From traditional Japanese aesthetics right through to modern research on stress reduction.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, it's like a masterclass in how to live lightly, both physically, with your stuff, and digitally, with all that clutter and endless consumption.
So we often think about Snufkin's freedom in terms of his travel, his wandering. But the sources you looked at suggest the real core idea is actually about non-possession.
That's right.
How does that specific lack of ownership translate into real mental freedom for someone who's juggling a career, a household, all of that?
Well, it translates pretty directly into being present. Snufkin limits his physical baggage, right? So he can maximize his mental space.
Okay.
There's this key quote. Now I'm just observing. That way I can carry it in my head when I go home. That way my hands are always free. So the freedom isn't as a souvenir, it's in the experience. You don't actually need to hold on to the physical thing if you truly observe it, if you really absorb it into your memory.
And we can see that lack of baggage immediately. I mean, his list of possessions is tiny. It's almost an aesthetic statement in itself.
Totally. An old green outfit, a hat, a tent, a harmonica, and a fishing rod. That's basically it.
He keeps his physical life almost frictionless.
Exactly. His possessions serve a purpose, function, movement. Nothing more. And this autonomy, this freedom, it isn't just limited to things. It extends right into his deepest relationships.
Right, like with Moomin.
Yeah, look at that dynamic. He always comes back in the spring, right? But he always leaves in the winter. That seasonal rhythm. Well, that's the definition of a clear, non-negotiable boundary.
Okay, but here's the thing. Snufkin can just pack up and leave. How does someone, who has to live and work with other people apply that kind of radical, almost seasonal autonomy without just seeming unreliable? Or, frankly, selfish?
Yeah, that's the critical translation piece, isn't it? The sources give us the philosophical grounding first. There's this line. You can't get true freedom if you worship someone too much. Now, that isn't a statement against love or connection. It's more like a mandate for self-respect and autonomy within relationships. He clearly values the connection with Moomin deeply. But he also respects his own need for, rejuvenation, for solitude. He chooses to leave. He even says the best way to be lonely is to go on a journey.
Right, lonely in the sense of choosing solitude.
Exactly. That choice of selective solitude is crucial. It's empowering. It's not the same as forced isolation, which feels isolating and negative.
And it's interesting, this isn't just some abstract idea Tove Jansson came up with. The sources remind us that Snufkin's model was actually her fiancé, Atos Virtanen.
Yeah, Finnish intellectual.
Who was apparently known for exactly that habit coming and going. So this wasn't just invented for a story. It was based on a real way someone navigated love alongside, a pretty radical commitment to personal independence.
It really shows that even complex adult relationships can thrive with radically clear boundaries. But, the key ingredients are trust and mutual respect for each person's individual needs.
Okay, let's shift to aesthetics then. Because Snufkin finds beauty in things that are simple, maybe even transient, whereas the modern world often pushes complexity, perfection. He's often searching for a simple melody, right? And in one story, it just arrives. It came quickly, more beautiful and simpler than he had expected. And that beauty is just felt, experienced, remembered. It's not something he captures or buys.
And his whole idea of ownership, That's perhaps the most revolutionary concept we found. Think about the story with the garnet jewel he finds.
Yeah.
He ultimately gives it away. He says something like, I can say it is mine because I wrote a poem about that jewel, but I'll give it to you. I don't need it anymore.
Wow. So he possesses it through the act of creation, through the experience of it, not by physically holding on to it.
Precisely. And he actively pushes back against this idea of managed artificial perfection. Like when he encounters the park keeper who's, manicuring nature, putting up signs everywhere, trying to control it.
Right, trying to make it perfect.
And Snufkin's reaction, he tears out all the signs. He basically liberates the park, shouting, "Go home, everyone. You can go anywhere you like." He's rejecting rules designed to control wildness, to enforce some kind of manufactured beauty.
And that rejection of control, that insistence on radical simplicity, you mentioned it resonates with Japanese aesthetics.
Incredibly deeply, yeah. And this is where we can kind of synthesize his principles, which are, 70 years old? Mm-hmm. We can synthesize them into contemporary movements. I mean, Snufkin wasn't Japanese, obviously, but he embodies these concepts almost perfectly.
Okay, so why does a Finnish character from the 1940s seem to perfectly match these ancient design principles that are suddenly relevant again today? What are those echoes specifically?
Well, it really boils down to appreciating absence and imperfection. Let's start with Danshari. This is the Japanese concept, popularized more recently by Hideko Yamashita. It basically means cutting off unnecessary things, discarding the unwanted, and freeing yourself from attachment. Our sources point out Snufkin was doing this long before it became a modern trend.
Right, fighting that urge to consume.
Exactly. And the core finding of Danshari research is that something like 75% of our possessions don't actually contribute to our happiness. That is pure Snufkin.
And what about the space aspect? You mentioned his simple tent.
Right, that ties into Ma.
Yeah.
It's the idea of the beauty found in space and silence between things, between objects, between sounds. Snufkin's simple tent, the unhurried way he talks, the silence during his journeys, that all embodies Ma. The empty space isn't empty, it's rich with potential. It's not demanding to be filled.
Interesting.
And then finally, there's wabi-sabi. This is about finding beauty in imperfection, in transience, in things being a bit rustic or worn. Snufkin preferring his old stretched clothes over new ones, embracing the rough texture of nature. That's wabi-sabi personified.
So this isn't just like nice philosophy. It's actually driving some big societal shifts now. The data seems to back this up as a viable path for 2025.
Oh, absolutely. Globally, the number is huge. Over 50 million people now live as digital nomads. These are people actively prioritizing freedom of movement over owning property.
Ew, 50 million.
And the benefits, they're quantifiable and pretty startling. Research indicates that adopting minimalism can reduce stress by something like 75%.
75%.
Yeah, and increase life satisfaction by around 80%. Plus, look at the remote work revolution. 48% of global workers are remote now. They report 24% higher job satisfaction and 79% lower stress levels compared to those stuck in an office 5 days a week.
That's massive.
It is. And you even see this shift in values after major events, like after the 2011 Great East Japan earthquake. It seems to have clarified for many people there that experiences and human connections are what really last. Not physical stuff, the viability of living lightly. It's being proven by real-world outcomes.
Okay, I'm convinced, or at least very intrigued. Snufkin's life makes sense aesthetically, the numbers back it up, but, for those of us with mortgages, complex schedules, maybe kids, where'd we actually start? We need that practical toolkit. How do we apply this non-possession, this radical simplicity?
Right, the how-to. Well, step one, which Snufkin just does naturally, is clarifying your why. Before you even touch a single object, you need to figure out what you hope to gain. Is it less stress? More freedom? Time for passions?
Okay.
Snufkin's why was just pure, unfettered freedom of movement. You need to know yours. Write it down.
And then for the physical stuff, moving past theory into actual rules.
Yeah, the classic 4-box method is a good starting point.
Yeah.
Keep, donate, sell, trash. Simple categories. But if you find yourself getting paralyzed by decisions, the 90-90 rule is really helpful, basically. If you haven't used an item in the last 90 days and you honestly don't think you'll use it in the next 90 days, let it go.
90-90. Got it.
And to kind of emulate Snufkin's iconic simplicity, the sources often recommend adopting a capsule wardrobe.
Ah, yes, I've heard of this.
Yeah, the idea is maybe 30 to 40 coordinated items, good quality materials, colors that work together. It basically eliminates that morning what do I wear decision fatigue, and it cuts down on impulse shopping.
But how do you stop the stuff creeping back in? That's always the challenge, isn't it? Reaccumulation.
Totally. You need strict preventative measures. The baseline is the one in, one out rule. Simple. New thing comes in, a similar old thing must go out.
Okay.
But if you want something a bit more rigorous, there's this idea called the joy tax.
The joy tax. Sounds ominous.
Maybe. But the idea is if you buy one item that genuinely brings you joy, you must get rid of two items that do not bring you joy. It forces you to be really deliberate and connects that philosophical freedom to concrete action.
I like that. Okay, but we have to talk about the weight we carry now that Snufkin didn't. Digital clutter. He kept his tent light. We need to keep our phones and minds light.
Oh, absolutely. Digital minimalism is, I'd argue, mandatory for mental freedom today. A good first step. Turn off all non-essential notifications. Just do it.
All of them, really.
Be ruthless. Then, take an honest look at your screen time. Where is it actually going? The sources strongly suggest starting with maybe a 24-hour digital detox, just to kind of reset your brain's baseline, break that passive consumption habit.
Okay, a digital detox.
Yep.
And when we're evaluating new apps, new tech,
What's
the Snufkin-approved filter? What questions should we ask?
It's really derived from Cal Newport's approach, selecting only technology that genuinely serves your ideal life. Snufkin's version would be simpler, more direct. Does that app make you free, or does it bind you?
Free or bind?
Yeah. If the tech is constantly demanding your attention, if it's monetizing your anxiety, if it stops you setting boundaries, it's binding you. You have to consciously choose technologies that actually support the freedom you decided you wanted back in step one.
Okay, this is where it gets tricky, right? Snufkin lives pretty autonomously, but most of us have obligations, deep human connections. We talked about how he just leaves every winter. How do we translate that kind of radical seasonal rhythm into responsible behavior for someone with, say, a demanding job or family commitments?
We translate his rhythm into clear, communicated boundaries. Snufkin returning and leaving, it sets a precise expectation, doesn't it?
Yeah, Moomintrol knows he'll be back.
Right. So you need to apply that same kind of rigor, that clarity, to your own schedule, your own interactions. For time boundaries, this could mean simple things like, okay, no checking work emails after 9 p.m., or scheduling 30 minutes of absolutely non-negotiable alone time every single day.
Okay.
For emotional boundaries, it means consciously deciding not to take on other people's problems as if they were your own. Being supportive is different from absorbing their stress. And for social boundaries, it's simply accepting that you don't have to say yes to every single invitation or request. It's okay to protect your energy.
But the communication part is key, isn't it? How do you set those boundaries without causing friction, either at work or personally?
The recommended technique is using I statements. Instead of making demands or accusations, you express your needs from your own perspective.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Instead of saying, you interrupt me constantly, which sounds like an attack,
Right.
you'd say, I find it hard to focus when I'm interrupted frequently. I really need about 30 minutes of uninterrupted time in the morning to finish this report effectively.
Yeah.
See the difference? You state your need clearly, responsibly, without placing blame.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And we also need to maybe rethink our relationship with work itself. Snufkin had this great definition of duty, doing what you don't want to do.
Yeah, pretty blunt.
It nails obligation, but we need to move past this impossible ideal of work-life balance. That perfect, unsustainable 50-50 split feels like a myth.
It often is. The sources suggest we should strive for work-life fit instead.
Fit, not balance. Okay.
Yeah, fit focuses on outcomes, not just hours clocked. It means really knowing your personal energy rhythm, like, are you sharpest in the morning or late afternoon? And then prioritizing based on your current life stage. Snufkin prioritizes travel and solitude in winter, connection in summer. That's fit for him.
Right.
For you, it might mean blocking out deep work time during your peak hours and trusting that the work can fit around your life rather than constantly trying to force your life to fit around work's demands.
And finally, on connection. That relationship between Snufkin and Moomintrol, it really seems like a model for non-possessive connection, doesn't it?
Absolutely. They respect each other's independence deeply. They trust each other. They don't seem to need constant contact or validation to know the bond is strong. And this really highlights the value of solitude again. Remember, selective solitude, the kind Snufkin chooses, is shown to reduce stress and increase autonomy. It's forced isolation or loneliness that's detrimental. The key difference, the one you often can control, is choice. And we can't talk about Snufkin without talking about nature. His entire life is fundamentally built on it, isn't it? He lives outside the human systems, mostly. He draws energy from the natural world.
Right.
Now, obviously, we can't all just go sleep in a tent by a river whenever we want, but the research here is, well, irrefutable. Spending just 2 hours per week in nature significantly reduces stress and anxiety levels.
2 hours a week? That seems doable.
It is, and here's the really shocking insight from the sources we looked at. Your connection to nature impacts your life satisfaction 4 times more than your socioeconomic status.
Wow, wait. Say that again? 4 times more.
4 times more. Getting outside, feeling connected to the natural world, is fundamentally more important to your overall happiness than the size of your paycheck or your social standing.
That's profound.
It really is. And that's why we need to translate Snufkin's effortless connection into accessible things we can do even living in cities. The sources give 5 simple methods. The first, and maybe the most powerful, is just sense.
Sense.
Yeah, actively using your senses. Listening for birdsong, touching the bark of a tree, smelling damp earth or cut grass, or simply looking up at the sky. They specifically highlight sky gazing as maybe the quickest way to shift your perspective.
Okay, just notice things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The others build on that awareness. Beauty, consciously noticing seasonal changes, watching a sunrise or sunset. Emotion, acknowledging the feeling nature brings up. Maybe awe, maybe peace. Meaning recognizing the cycles of nature, growth, decay, renewal. And compassion, making sustainable choices. Maybe growing a plant on your windowsill, reducing waste, thinking about our impact.
These feel like small things.
They are. They don't require a big weekend trip. You can institute a sit spot. That's just finding a dedicated bench, maybe even a windowsill, where you sit and observe quietly for just 5 minutes each day.
A sit spot. I like that.
Or practice what they call urban Shinrin-yoku. Shinrin-yoku is Japanese forest bathing.
Yeah.
The urban version is just mindful, walking in any green space, a park, a tree-lined street, for maybe 10 or 20 minutes, really using all 5 senses to anchor yourself in that present moment, that natural environment, however small.
So it brings that foundational importance of nature, the thing Snufkin has effortlessly, into our, structured, busy days.
Precisely. Microdoses of nature connection. Hashtag outro.
So this deep dive really reveals that Snufkin's life, this seemingly simple cartoon character's life, is actually a highly sophisticated blueprint for living well in the modern world. The core tenets seem to be intentionality, authenticity, challenging unnecessary rules, and embracing radical simplicity.
Yeah, that sums it up well.
And the goal here isn't to literally become Snufkin, right? Not to abandon your life for wandering. It's about applying his principles, especially that non-possession idea and the clear boundaries, applying those to your own 2025 reality.
Exactly. And that application has to be incremental. You can't just flip a switch. It's one clear boundary set this week. It's one drawer decluttered. It's one mindful walk in the park.
Small steps.
Small steps. It's a journey, really, of letting go of what binds you and consciously holding on to what actually liberates you.
We've covered a lot, from the joy tax to work-life fit to urban nature connection. What's the final, maybe provocative thought you think people should carry with them from this as they navigate their week?
I think remember that the ultimate freedom Snufkin teaches isn't really about what he does, it's about his inner direction, his conviction. It's not about following a prescribed path, not even his path. It's about figuring out your own true north. The greatest boundary you can set, maybe, is the one that protects that inner conviction. As Snufkin himself said, the important thing is knowing what you want to do yourself.
Knowing what you want to do yourself.
Yeah, use that conviction as your compass. That's the ultimate freedom he offers us.